I'm Dr. Shefali Mishra, Associate Professor, Department of Psychology, Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. In this special section, we also have Ms. Manisha Sharma, sign language interpreter with us today, who will explain the lecture using symbolic expressions. We have been learning about basics in psychological research, and today we will continue examining some of the philosophical and methodological approaches to psychological research. We have understood that research aims to address questions concerning social reality and human nature within a socio-cultural context, which utilizes various theoretical viewpoints. Social research, to which the psychological research belongs, is a systematic examination that is shaped by the underlying assumptions derived from a philosophical standpoint of science. In this lecture, we will explore the various philosophical perspectives that inform social science research approaches and their connection to diverse research methodologies. The approaches to social research can be classified as follows. Number 1, philosophical approaches, and number 2, methodological approaches. The commonly categorized philosophical perspectives include the philosophy of positivism and the philosophy of post-positivism. These approaches, or paradigms as they are popularly known as in scientific research, are conceptual frameworks that are shaped by philosophical assumptions about the nature of science. Social science research is directed by several philosophical views, and which could be categorized as number 1, positivism, number 2, interpretivism, and number 3, critical realism. In the previous lecture, we studied about positivism, which is one of the 3 major approaches to social research that emphasizes discovering causal laws, careful empirical observations, and focuses on value-free research. So positivism is the approach of natural sciences. So many people assume that positivist approach is actually science. Positivist social scientist researchers focus on the use of accurate quantitative data, employing experiments, surveys, and statistical analysis. They highlight the importance of accurate measurements and objective research. However, criticisms are there for the positivist social science approach on several grounds. Objective and scientific methods are believed to be suitable for studying natural objects, but they are less effective when applied to social phenomena. So, basically, positivist social science does not perform well when it comes to social sciences. Again, the intricate nature of laws that regulate individuals, their unique characteristics, their interactions with each other, institutions, and society sharply contrast with the order and predictability which is observed in the natural world. Also, the belief that applying scientific methods to social phenomena will result in the discovery of governing laws has been criticized widely by scholars. The critique of positivist paradigm gave rise to what we know as post-positivism. So let us now examine some of the important elements or paradigms under post-positivism. So number 1 is interpretive social science, which we also refer to as ISS. Interpretive social science is one of the 3 major approaches to social research that emphasizes meaningful social action, socially constructed meaning systems, and values relativism. Interpretivism, which is also sometimes called anti-positivism, takes things yet further by arguing that objectivity is impossible, something on which positivist strongly emphasizes upon. As an approach, ISS leads researcher to focus on gaining subjective knowledge rather than objective knowledge through approaches using detailed observations and discussions. It can be traced back to German sociologist Max Weber and Wilhelm Dilthey. Weber argued that social science needs to study social action with a purpose. He emphasized that personal reasons and motives that shape internal feelings should be studied rather than objective reality. According to Dilthey, there are two types of science. A, which is based on abstract explanation, and B, science, which is rooted in empathetic understanding or everyday experiences of people. Knowledge in the human and social sciences cannot adhere to the natural science models due to the subjective features of human experiences that cannot be objectively known. This may encompass emotions, understandings, values, feelings, subjectivities, socio-cultural factors, historical influences, and other similar significant aspects of human existence. The interpretivist seeks to generate understanding rather than discovering truth and often takes a relativist stance. Relativist stance would mean that different people identify truth as their own based on their own perspectives and experiences. ISS researchers, therefore, study meaningful social actions to which people attach subjective meaning. ISS ontology is about the nature of reality, is that there is no single external reality. People construct their own reality based on subjective principles peculiar to that particular individual. ISS further holds that social life is based on social interactions and socially constructed meanings. So, world and knowledge are created by social and contextual understanding. For interpretivists, reality is subjective and multiple. It is constructed and understood by individuals based on their own experiences. The methods they adopt are mostly narrative methods, interviews, observations, ethnography, case study, phenomenology, hermeneutics, document analysis, to name a few. The epistemology in interpretivism is that reality is understood through perceived knowledge. How we get to know of a single person's worldview is more important than anything else. So they believe that access to other human beings is possible only by indirect means. The research here focuses on the specific and concrete, and the idea is not to offer generalizations. Seeking to understand specific context is one of the major objectives of ISS research. Therefore, the researcher thinks critically, historically, and biographically. ISS is related to hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is a method focusing on detailed reading or examination of texts. So here, researcher conducts reading to discover meaning embedded within texts. In other words, the researcher brings one's subjective experiences to the text. When reading the text, each researcher tries to get inside the viewpoint of the text to develop a deeper understanding. True meaning in ISS is not obvious at surface, and seeking connections among the parts leads to true meaning. So, interpretive researchers use participant observations and field research. That is, they spend hours in direct contact with the participants. Then they analyze the transcripts of conversation they have had with their participants, and they also study videotapes of behavior if they have employed observation in their research study. So we can say that ISS involves a systematic examination of what is called meaningful social behavior by closely observing people in their natural settings in order to grasp how they create and maintain their social world. So let us now examine some of the important aspects of interpretivism. Let's focus on what is the purpose of research in interpretivism. The purpose of research is to study social life, to see how people construct meaning in natural settings, something we have already examined. Now, what is meaningful to people is based on their own experiences of their daily lives. So, meaningful is not something which is objective, but there is a lot of subjectivity attached to what meanings people ascribe to their experiences and phenomena around them. It takes the participant's point of view, in other words. So, studies meaningful social actions, not just external and observable behavior or phenomena. Social action is action to which people attach subjective meaning, which is acquired through culture. So the role of culture becomes very important here, and it is cultural meaning system which is valuable in interpretive research. Now, what is the nature of reality? For interpretivists, social reality is intentionally something which is created by people. It is not given, but it is constructed. So social world is fluid and fragile. Whatever people perceive it to be becomes the social world or reality. So as people experience it, they give meaning to it, the nature of social reality may keep changing accordingly. Social reality is constructed through interactions. So when people interact with each other, when people interact with the social world, they keep constructing the reality around them. Social life is based on social interactions. Interactions and beliefs of people construct reality, and this kind of orientation is known as constructionist orientation, where we believe that reality is not given, not existing as an objective part of our existence, but it is something which is created, constructed while we interact in the social settings. It is a product of social processes, and therefore most of the times reality is taken for granted aspect of our existence. Language plays a very important role here because language is filled with built-in social constructions. Whereas positivist social research that we have examined in the previous section says that everyone experiences the world in the same way, ISS believes that there are multiple interpretations of human experiences and reality. So several people may have seen, heard, or even touched the same physical object, but may assign different meanings and interpretations to it. The social reality is actually about people who construct meaning and create interpretations through interactions. Regarding the basic nature of human beings, ISS researchers believe that human behavior may be patterned and regular, but the cause for this is not pre-existing laws like positivism would claim, but it is due to the evolving meaning systems. Because they share a culture and beliefs, values of the culture are same, the meanings attached to them may be more or less same, therefore there is regularity and pattern in one's behavior. And it is not because of any scientific natural law governing the behavior. Regarding the human agency, whereas PSS focuses on deterministic relations and external forces, interpretivists believe in free choice. ISS adopts voluntarism, which means that human actions are based on subjective choices and reasons which are decided by the individual. Regarding relationship between science and common sense, which becomes an important focus in any research we undertake, we see again that positivism sees common sense as inferior to science, but for interpretivists, a common sense is a vital source of information for understanding people and should not be dropped from the research study. According to them, science and common sense actually both are important because both fulfill different purposes. Regarding the theory of social reality, whereas positivist attempts to replicate natural science theory through logical axioms, theorems, interrelated laws and propositions, ISS theory is like telling of a story. For ISS, theory is all about narratives and discourse of people. The interpretive approach is hagiographic. It is, focuses on individuals and their focuses on specification, and it is about understanding meaning of subjective phenomenon. So ISS research report often looks like a novel, and when you read that report, you feel like you are reading a novel or a biography that highlights local customs and informal norms. What makes an explanation true or false? Here too we find difference between PSS and ISS, where positivism relies on theory, like focuses on collection of data, analysis, allows replication. Interpretivist follows postulate of adequacy, which means, which is actually a principle that explanation should be understandable in common sense terms. So actor's point of view is important here. What is treated as good evidence also differs in both the approaches. For positivism, as we already have seen, it is nothing but observable, precise facts which can become good evidence. However, in interpretivism, facts are embedded within meaning systems and are context dependent. So that is a good evidence, actually grasping the socio-emotional context of the participant or actor is accepted as good evidence in ISS. Regarding relevance of knowledge, they have a practical orientation. ISS takes a transcendent perspective towards the use and application of new knowledge in contrast to PSS. Transcendent here means to go beyond ordinary material experiences and perceptions. So it goes deeper into the human reality, the subjective experience, when it describes what is knowledge. In social research, it means not to stop at the surface or observable level like PSS, but go on to an inner and subjective realm of human experience. Now, every research has certain values, but when you come to discuss positivism, you see that they call for elimination of value, which they say that research operates within an apolitical environment, whereas interpretivist, on the other hand, asks us to reflect, to re-examine, and to analyze personal views and feelings. So, ISS researchers adopt the position of relativism, and that which means that there is no single viewpoint or no value position is better than others, and all are equally valid for those who hold them. So if we look at interpretive research, we see that it is about understanding plus meaning making, and the kind of understanding being, however, is sought, which is determined by the researchers depending on their assumptions and methods. So even in interpretivism, we may see people approaching truth, people approaching social reality and research questions related to it by different methods and approaches. There are various variations of ISS, and hermeneutics, constructivism, and ethnomethodology, etc. are some of them. Now let us examine one of the forms of ISS, which is constructivism. Constructivism is a development in scientific method that indicates discourse, language, and rhetoric as important part of research. These are instruments with which a person constructs the world. It is seen mostly in narrative or qualitative kind of approaches. So we see that most post-positivists are constructivists because they believe that people construct social reality differently based on their own experiences. Reality is subjective and has different meanings for different people, according to constructivism, just like interpretivism. Constructivists argue that human reality is a product of social construction. People's interaction and belief shape reality. People construct it based on their subjective experiences and conscious actions, and that everyday life is filled with routines, social roles, and attitudes that are internalized from significant others in the cultural group and are worthy for investigation in psychological research. The reality of life, according to them, is established through social interactions, particularly in conversations people have with each other, use of language which demonstrate various interpretations of same event. Now next we move to the third perspective, that is critical social science, which we may also refer to as CSS. This is one of the three major approaches to social research combating surface level distortions, multiple levels of reality, and value-based activism for human empowerment. So it agrees with many of the criticisms which are directed at PSS by interpretivism, and it adds some of its own criticisms for PSS. But it also disagrees at the same time with interpretivism on some grounds, finding them especially too subjective and relativist. So we see that critical social science is slightly different from interpretivism, even though it belongs to the category of post-positivism, because it does not focus on observable surface level reality. It does believe in subjective experiences, but it proposes to go deeper and understand the structures which make society. It criticizes positivism for being narrow, for being anti-democratic, and for being non-humanist in its use of reason. And also it criticizes PSS for another reason, that is for its objectivity, its law-like quantitative empirical approach. So as we already know, critical social science approach, which is also known as critical realism, is a type of post-positivistic perspective of philosophy of science, but this perspective suggests that science should not aim to provide absolute certainty about social reality, including human nature, social interactions, social inequality, roles, and other aspects. A critical realist understands that observations are not perfect because each individual constructs their own reality based on their perception. It is, however, possible to gain insight into another person's perspective or experience through qualitative methods. As already seen, the focus of this approach is on addressing surface-level distortions, various types of reality, and promoting value-driven activism for human empowerment.